Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's great to be back.
I have to be honest with you. When we first decided to cover this specific text, I was a little skeptical. We usually do the heavy hitters, Kant, Hume, Aristotle.
Suspects.
The usual suspects, exactly. The stuff that feels like homework, but, the good kind of homework. And then you slid this book across the desk, Serapis, specifically the third volume, by Georg Ebers.
Right.
A historical novel from the 19th century about a riot in the 4th century. And my first thought was, are we doing a book club today? This is a romance novel.
And it's a fair question. It definitely has the trappings of a romance novel. I mean, there are lovers torn apart, there's secret meetings, riots in the streets.
Love the drama.
All the drama. But that's the Trojan horse. Ebers isn't just telling a story about the fall of a temple in Alexandria. He is, I think, conducting a really rigorous philosophical autopsy.
An autopsy of what exactly?
Of a civilization's mind, of its entire operating system. He's asking a question that is, frankly, terrifyingly relevant to anyone living through a major cultural shift. What happens to the human psyche when its metaphysical axiom, the foundational truth it builds reality on, is suddenly deleted?
Okay, that is a heavy pivot from historical romance. So we aren't just talking about a change in management like, the pagans are out, the Christians are in. We are talking about the collapse of reality itself.
We're talking about the moment when something becomes nothing. The text treats this transition not as a political event, not even really as a religious event in the way we think of it. It's a collision of logical frameworks.
A collision of logics.
Yes, it's a study of the precise moment a civilization's entire logical structure collapses and the screen just goes black.
Okay, that hook works. I'm in.
Yeah.
So let's orient ourselves because the context is everything here. We are in Alexandria. The year is roughly 391 AD. What is the vibe on the street? Because the text spends a lot of time setting the scene before the real action kicks off.
The vibe is tension. But it's not just political tension, it's aesthetic tension, it's philosophical tension. Alexandria at this time is a city sliced in half. It's almost two different worlds occupying the same physical space.
Right.
On one side, you have the Bruchium and the great Serapium. This is the stronghold of the old world, the Greek world.
The text describes the canopic way. It sounds incredibly beautiful. I mean, gardens, colonnades, statues everywhere.
It's the world of Hellenism in its last sort of beautiful autumn. The pagans here, led by figures like the philosopher Olympius and the merchant family of Porphyrius, they aren't just religious in the modern sense, they are aesthetes.
What do you mean by that?
For them, the good is synonymous with the beautiful. The divine is revealed through form, through harmony, through art. The text gives us these incredibly vivid descriptions of the pagan students and soldiers who are defending this worldview.
Yeah, I circled that description. It says they have perfumed curls, they're wearing garlands of flowers, they're marching around singing these old battle songs by Callinus. It feels very energetic, very alive.
It's the celebration of life, isn't it? It's a celebration of the body, of the sensory world. In the Neoplatonic tradition, which completely dominates this side of the city, the physical world is a reflection of the divine. So to beautify yourself, to sing, to enjoy art, that is a genuine act of worship.
It's a kind of prayer through beauty.
A perfect way to put it. And then you have the other side of the street. And the contrast the author uses is so jarring. It's like switching from a lush Technicolor movie to a gritty black and white documentary about a famine.
Enter the desert monks.
Mm-hmm. And the text does not portray these men as the gentle, haloed saints you might see in Renaissance art. Not at all. These are the shock troops of a new paradigm. They're described as haggard, they wear undressed sheepskins, they smell.
There was one detail that genuinely made me wince. The crown bearer.
Yes.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because that is a specific kind of intensity that's hard to wrap your head around.
It is. This is a monk who wears a literal crown of thorns, but he presses it so hard into his own head that his forehead is constantly bleeding, and he just walks through the city like that as a public display.
And people, they respond to this. They like this.
The Christian mob reveres it. They see it as the ultimate sign of piety. And he's not alone. There is the oil jar, a man so emaciated from constant fasting that he has to be physically supported by other monks just to walk. And of course, the two hermits who are chained together.
They're like prisoners.
Like prisoners of their own devotion. They chain themselves together so that they can never fully lie down or get comfortable, ensuring they are always awake, always in a state of penance.
My God.
The logic here is the exact inverse of the pagan view. If the pagans believe good equals beauty, these monks represent the radical new idea that good equals suffering. Good equals the absolute denial of the physical world.
So on one side of the city, you have perfumed curls and philosophy. On the other, you have bleeding foreheads and sheepskins. It's not just two religions clashing. It's two completely different definitions of what it even means to be a human being.
Precisely. And they are living in the same city, walking the same streets, breathing the same air. It is a powder keg. And the match that lights it is the Edict of Theodosius.
Let's get into that, because usually when we read about historical edicts, it's dry, it's boring legal stuff. Tax rates are adjusted by 2%. But this scene in the square before the prefect's house feels completely different. Zenegius, the imperial envoy, comes out to read the decree.
And this isn't a tax adjustment. This is, as you said before, a metaphysical eviction notice.
I have the text of the decree here, or at least how the book presents it. It starts with the usual stuff. Whosoever shall defile himself with blood or slay an innocent beast for sacrifice. Okay, so no more animal sacrifice. That makes sense for the transition. But then it goes so much further. Or worship any image. Nay, or pray in any temple.
Keep going. There is that one specific line about the eyes. That's the one that always gets me.
Right here. The act of looking at the idols.
Stop there. That is the pivot point for the entire conflict.
They banned looking. How is that even possible?
The text explicitly bans the gaze. It frames the old religion as a devilish heresy, yes. But by banning the act of looking, the state is criminalizing a sensory experience. It is asserting that the image itself, the statue of Serapis, is active, that it has a malevolent power that transmits through the eyes.
That feels incredibly modern in a really dystopian way. It's like thought crime. I mean, if I'm a pagan walking past the temple and I just glance up, am I a criminal?
Under this edict, yes, you are. The emperor, Theodosius, claims to be the sword and shield of the Nicaean Creed. He isn't just regulating behavior anymore, he is regulating attention. The state has decided to enforce a specific metaphysical truth, the Nicaean Creed, and anything outside of that isn't just wrong, it is illegal reality.
Illegal reality. That is a terrifying phrase.
And that is exactly how the pagans feel. This brings us to the character who really embodies this terror. We have to talk about Damia.
Damia, the grandmother. She is intense. She's not exactly the warm, cookie-baking grandma type, is she?
Not in the slightest. She's running the powerful merchant family of Porphyrius with an iron fist. She's checking star charts. She's managing the accounts. She's a philosopher in her own right.
And she's the intellectual anchor of the pagan side. She is a devout neoplatonist. And her reaction to this edict isn't just anger or frustration. It's a deep existential horror.
Yes, but it's a very specific, almost mathematical kind of horror.
Right. She keeps talking about the void. She says if the Serapium falls, if the image of the god is destroyed, the result isn't just that they lose the war. She seemed to think the universe will actually end.
And from her perspective, she's being perfectly logical. To understand why, we have to unpack her philosophy a bit. We need to do a little Neoplatonism 101.
Okay, break it down for us, because she uses a lot of these capitalized words like the one and the mind. What is she actually talking about?
So think of reality as a ladder, or maybe a cascade, like a waterfall. At the very, very top, you have the one.
The one.
This is the primal unity, the source code of everything. It is so abstract and so perfect that you can't even really describe it with words. It just is. It's beyond being.
Okay. So God, but in a very abstract philosophical sense.
Right. Now, the first thing that emanates from the one is the divine mind, or the nous. This is the realm of pure intellect, of the perfect forms. And in Damia's theology, the god Serapis is the physical manifestation of this divine mind.
So Serapis isn't just a statue in a temple.
Not to her. He isn't a myth. He is the active intelligence that holds the entire cosmos together. He is the operating system of the universe.
So if the one is the power source, Serapis is the processor.
Exactly, a perfect analogy. Now, below the divine mind, you have the soul of the universe. This is associated with nature, growth, life force, what they'd call Aphrodite. And below that, finally, you get to matter, the physical stuff we can see and touch.
So the ladder goes, the one, the mind, which is Serapis, the soul, matter.
Correct. Now, follow Damia's logic. If you destroy the mind, if you physically shatter the statue of Serapis, what happens to the ladder?
You break the chain. You sever the connection between the ultimate source, the one, and the entire physical world.
And if you sever that connection, the physical world doesn't just become chaotic. Chaos implies a disordered state of something. If the sustaining mind is gone, the logical result is not disorder, it's nothingness.
This is where her language gets really poetic and scary. She describes hearing the brazen tramp of the airy and incorporeal monster.
Nothingness. It is a chilling phrase. And remember, the text makes a point of telling us that Damia is a mathematician. This is important.
Why is that so significant?
Because the Greeks, and by extension, the Hellenized Egyptians like Damia, had a deep philosophical problem with the concept of zero. They abhorred the void, horror vacui, nature abhors a vacuum. To them, zero wasn't just a placeholder in an equation, it was a conceptual horror. It was non-being.
Right, she explicitly says something like, I find it difficult to conceive of a mathematical point. It is nothing, and yet it is something.
She is wrestling with the paradox of the void. For a modern person, nothing just means an empty room or an empty bank account. For Damia, nothing means the cessation of existence itself. If Serapis falls, the atoms stop holding together, the sun goes out, the universe returns to the pre-creation state of absolute non-being.
So when she's screaming and panicking later in the book, she isn't being melodramatic. From her point of view, she's following a strict logical proof.
Right.
Premise A, Serapis sustains the universe. Premise B, Serapis is about to be destroyed. Conclusion, absolute total deletion.
Exactly. It is a logical syllogism that ends in the apocalypse. And what makes this so fascinating and so tragic is that the Christians don't see this at all. For them, Serapis is just a big piece of carved rock. If you break the block, all you get is a pile of smaller rocks.
Right.
But for Damia, breaking that rock is like smashing the central server that runs the simulation of the universe.
That is a fundamental disconnect. They aren't even fighting about the same thing. The Christians are fighting an idol. Damia is fighting for the continued existence of physics.
And caught right in the middle of this metaphysical war is her granddaughter, Gorgo.
Gorgo. Okay, let's talk about the romance aspect, because this is where the philosophy gets very personal, very human. Gorgo is a pagan, raised in this deeply Neoplatonic world. But she is in love with Constantine, who is a high-ranking Christian officer.
It's the classic Romeo and Juliet setup, but with a theological twist. This isn't just about warring families, it's about the conflict between what the Greeks would call eros, love, and logos, reason, or in this case, duty to one's worldview.
The text spends a lot of time establishing their backstory, which I think is important. It's not just a crush. They grew up together. There's this really sweet imagery of them building little toy boats in the shipyard as kids. It emphasizes that they share a deep history. They share a human connection.
But now, as adults, that very human connection is being tested by what Gorgo calls the whirlwind.
The whirlwind. That's the metaphor she uses, right? She says their difference in faith acts as a whirlwind that keeps pushing them apart, no matter how hard they try to get closer.
It's tragic because both of them are true believers. This isn't a case where one person is just casually religious. Constantine isn't a casual Christian. He's devout, part of the new power structure. And Gorgo isn't casual pagan. She's Damia's granddaughter. She's been raised at the very heart of this philosophy.
And usually, in modern stories, the message is something like, love conquers all. Just ignore the politics, ignore the religion. But the text doesn't let them off the hook that easily, does it?
No, it absolutely does not. Constantine basically tells her, I love you more than anything, but I cannot look at you while you are singing hymns to what my faith tells me is a demon. And Gorgo's response is just as firm, I love you, but I cannot abandon the gods of my fathers just to make you happy.
It really highlights the problem, that when you have two absolute competing truths, there is no middle ground. There's no compromise.
None. If Constantine is right, then Gorgo is literally damning her immortal soul by worshiping a demon. If Gorgo and Damia are right, then Constantine is an active participant in the force that is about to destroy the entire universe. You can't really agree to disagree on whether or not the universe is about to end.
You really can't.
That is the key insight of this part of the book. In a time of ideological absolutism, love is not enough. The text is very clear on this. The whirlwind tears them apart. It rejects that easy romantic trope for the sake of a much harder philosophical consistency. It suggests that our shared humanity breaks down when our shared reality breaks down.
Which is a deeply depressing thought.
It is, but it sets up the stakes perfectly. We have the pagan side facing what they believe is the void. But then the text does something really interesting. It flips the script and looks at the internal fractures of the new order, the Christian side. And this is where the book really surprised me. It's not a simple propaganda piece for Christianity. It's actually profoundly critical of it.
Yeah, let's talk about Agni. Of all the characters, she's the one who broke my heart.
Agnes is the innocent believer. She is a runaway slave girl. She isn't a philosopher like Damia. She isn't a soldier like Constantine. She represents the pure, unmediated faith of the common person.
And she's so brave. She runs away from her pagan master, a man named Carnus, because she refuses to participate in a pagan ceremony. She takes this huge risk for her faith, and she runs to the bishop's palace thinking, okay, I'm a Christian. The bishop is the head Christian. He will protect me. It's so simple.
She seeks a shepherd, but what she finds is a prince, a bureaucrat.
Can you describe the scene at the palace? Because it's not exactly a warm, welcoming sanctuary.
No, it's a government building. It's a bureaucracy. The text describes guards, scribes running around, noise, bustle. It's an administration center. Agna is completely overwhelmed. She's clutching a child. She's terrified. And when she finally gets an audience with the bishop, Theophilus, the text delivers this absolutely scathing critique of dogmatic rigidity.
This is what you call the theological trap. I was reading this part, and I just wanted to scream at the book. Theophilus doesn't look at this terrified girl and say, oh, you poor thing, come here, have some food, you're safe now.
Not at all. His very first questions are jurisdictional. He asks about her master, about the legal situation, and then he asks the fatal question, to what parish did your parents belong?
To what parish? Not did they love God, not were they good people, but what was the name of the building they went to on Sundays?
And Agna, in her complete innocence, answers truthfully, the parish of Damascus.
And the trap snaps shut.
Because Damascus was an Arian.
Okay, we need to pause here and unpack this. For the listener who hasn't brushed up on their 4th century church politics in a while, what is the big deal? Why does the name Damascus make the bishop's face go completely cold?
It all goes back to the Council of Nicaea, which happened a few decades earlier. The Nicaeans, which is Theophilus's faction, the official imperial state-sponsored faction, they believed that Jesus the Son was of the same substance. The Greek word is homoousios, as God the Father. Co-eternal, absolutely equal.
Okay, same substance. Got it.
The Arians, on the other hand, believed that Jesus was of a similar substance, homoousios. They believed he was the first and greatest creation of the Father, but that he was still created. Therefore, there was a time when he did not exist. He is divine, but subordinate to the Father.
So this is really, really subtle debate about the metaphysical nature of Christ.
To a modern secular ear, it sounds like splitting hairs. It's literally the difference of one iota, one vowel in the Greek. But in 391 AD, this was the difference between being a true believer and being a heretic. It was the absolute difference between salvation and damnation.
So Agna, this terrified girl who just wants to be safe, she admits her parents went to the wrong church. And Theophilus, he just rejects her.
He dismisses her out of hand. The text has her stumbling away, saying, the bishop has driven me away as an outcast. He essentially tells her that because she is the wrong kind of Christian, she is outside the protection of the church. He won't help her.
That is just brutal. It's the institutionalization of truth, right? The one true faith becomes a tool for exclusion, a weapon. It's like a hospital refusing to treat a dying patient because they have the wrong insurance, but on a cosmic, eternal scale.
That's a great analogy. And notice the parallel the author is drawing here. It's so clever. Damia rejects the Christians because they break her cosmic order, the Neoplatonic ladder. Theophilus rejects Agna because she breaks his doctrinal order, the Nicaean Creed.
Both systems are completely rigid.
Exactly. Both systems, the dying pagan one and the rising Christian one, have become so obsessed with their own logical purity that they end up crushing the actual human beings caught inside them.
It seems like the text is making a pretty cynical argument that systems are bad, people are good.
It is definitely critiquing the rigidity of systems. But it doesn't leave us in total cynicism. It offers a counterpoint. It offers a synthesis. It gives us a third option.
Deacon Eusebius.
Yes, my favorite character in the whole book.
I love Eusebius. He is such a breath of fresh air in this incredibly tense story. He's a deacon, so he's part of the church structure, but he seems to operate completely outside of its political, rigid vibe.
He is the synthesis of the best of both worlds. He has the deep faith of the Christians, but he also has this profound appreciation for life, for nature, for beauty that the pagans have. And he's introduced with that wonderful little detail about the dog.
Lazarus. the paralyzed dog.
The little dog who jumps with his forelegs, but his hind legs stick up in the air. It's such a specific, memorable image.
And most people in that era would have just put the dog down. But Eusebius cares for it. He built it a little cart. He says something really profound about it.
He does. He says, "The Lord has no joy in the strength of a horse, neither taketh he pleasure in any man's legs." It's a quote from the Psalms, but he applies it to this broken little animal.
It's the theology of small things. Theophilus is up in a palace worrying about empires and creeds and heresies. Eusebius is in a little garden with a peach tree and a crippled dog.
And this is where the counterpoint lands with such force. When Eusebius finds Agna weeping in the street after the bishop kicked her out, he doesn't ask her about her parish. He doesn't ask her about Arianism or Damascus. He just sees a person in pain, and he takes her in.
He chooses humanity over dogma every time.
And he has this beautiful argument later in the text that explains his whole philosophy. He imagines Arius, the arch-heretic himself, the ultimate boogeyman of the Nicaean church, appearing before Christ in heaven.
Oh, this is a great visual. I remember this.
Any other churchman at the time would imagine Christ casting Arius into the deepest, darkest pit of hell for all eternity. But Eusebius imagines Christ giving Arius a gentle pull by the ear.
A pull by the ear, like a disappointed but loving father with a naughty schoolboy.
Exactly, a gentle admonishment. He imagines Christ saying something like, "Thou fool, now thou seest what I really am, but thine errors be forgiven."
That is such a radical shift in perspective. It transforms God from a rigid, unforgiving judge into a teacher, or a father who understands that his children will make mistakes.
It argues that God is primarily love, not logic. Eusebius represents the idea that specific theological errors, getting the metaphysical math wrong about the substance of the sun, are far less important than the fundamental orientation of the heart. He is the only one who actually bridges the gap.
So we have the terror of the void, represented by Damia. We have the coldness of the institution, represented by Theophilus. And we have the warmth of humanity, represented by Eusebius. But unfortunately, this isn't a story about a garden party at Eusebius's house. This is a story about the fall of Serapis. The ideas have to crash into each other. We have to talk about the violence.
The violence of ideas. The text moves us really inexorably toward the physical confrontation, the battle for the Serapium.
And it's interesting because the text reveals the mechanics behind the riot. It's not just a spontaneous event of people got mad. There's money involved. There's strategy.
There is always money involved, isn't there? This is where Porphyrius, the merchant, comes back into play.
He's the one paying the bills for the pagan resistance.
He represents the economic underpinnings of this philosophical war. He's pragmatic. He outwardly complies with the Christians. He wears their blue colors when it's necessary to do business. But secretly, he is funneling huge amounts of gold, talents of it, to Barcus and Pachomius, the mercenary leaders who are organizing the defense of the temple.
It's a great reminder that even metaphysical wars need supply chains. But when the fighting actually starts, the text shifts its focus back to the mob dynamics. We talked about the visual contrast earlier, the aesthetics, but in the battle scene, it becomes visceral. It becomes physical.
The text describes the monks descending on the square like a force of nature. They aren't portrayed as an army. They're like a flood or a fire. They are wielding scourges. They are haggard. They are screaming psalms as they charge.
And facing them, the Hellenic youth. The description here is it feels Iliad-like. They are described as singing the songs of Calenus. Come, rouse ye Greeks, what, sleeping still? It's this appeal to a heroic, beautiful past.
It is the rose garland against the thorn. And the text isn't subtle about who has the advantage in this kind of fight. The rose garland is beautiful, but it is fragile. The thorn is hard, sharp, and absolutely relentless.
There's a specific line Eusebius says over the body of a dead pagan youth. He looks at this beautiful young man, probably one of those students with the perfumed curls, lying dead in the dust, and he says, "The rose garland of life is set with thorns."
It is a lament. It's not a celebration of victory. The text seems to suggest that the new world that's coming, the Christian world, is going to be powerful, rigorous, and perhaps necessary in some historical sense, but it will be uglier. It will be a world where the perfumed curls are shorn and the garlands are trampled underfoot.
It's the death of the aesthetic worldview.
And the birth of the ascetic worldview as the dominant force. The body is no longer a temple to be beautified. It is a prison to be scourged and controlled. The text portrays this not as a victory of truth over lie, but as the overwhelming of beauty by raw force.
So eventually they breach the temple, the Serapium falls. And this brings us right back to Damia's prophecy. The great statue of Serapis, the divine mind, is about to be smashed.
And here's the true climax of the philosophical argument. The soldier climbs the ladder, he raises his axe, and he strikes the god in the face.
And Damia is waiting for the sky to fall.
Whoa!
She is waiting for the brazen tramp of nothingness to consume everything.
Bang. Nothing happens.
Absolutely nothing. The sun keeps shining. The birds keep singing. The text mentions that mice keep scurrying across the floor of the temple.
The physical world does not dissolve. But, and this is the crucial nuance, the whole point of the book, Damia's world, does dissolve.
What do you mean by that?
In a very real way, Damia was right. The universe as she knew it, the universe of meaning, of connection, of the Neoplatonic ladder that gave everything its place and purpose, that universe is gone forever in that moment. It has been replaced by a new universe, one where a statue is just a rock and where God is a distant, demanding judge who wants bleeding foreheads.
So the nothingness wasn't a physical void. It was a semantic void. It was the complete loss of meaning.
Exactly. For Agna and Eusebius, the world continues because they have a new software to run it on. They have a new narrative that makes sense of things. But for Damia, she cannot run the new software. Her entire operating system is incompatible. So for her, she is left staring into the abyss. The world is still there, but it no longer makes sense.
That is a terrifying thought. To wake up one day and realize your fundamental truths are now just obsolete myths. It's not that you were proven wrong in an argument, it's that the entire world has moved on and left you stranded in a reality that no longer exists for anyone else.
It is the ultimate obsolescence. To become a ghost in your own lifetime.
Okay, that is a heavy place to land. But we are not done yet. We've analyzed the text, the characters, the philosophy. Now it's time to take these concepts out of the 4th century and see if they still hold water today.
It's time. Welcome to the Thought Experiment segment.
And the disclaimer.
Yeah.
These are for entertainment and educational purposes only. We are stress testing the logic of the text. We are not making predictions or endorsements of any kind.
Let's see what can break.
Experiment number 1, the metaphysical anchor.
Okay. Let's modernize Damia's fear. Damia believes the safety of the entire universe hangs on a single specific physical object, the image of Serapis. If it breaks, reality dissolves.
Right. Most of us today don't believe in statues that hold up the sky. But we absolutely believe in systems. We believe in networks. We believe in the grid.
So let's imagine a modern society where the divine mind isn't a god in a temple, but the internet, the cloud.
Okay. I'm with you.
Imagine that a specific society believes, genuinely believes, in the way Damia does, that their existence is contingent on the constant flow of data, that their identity, their history, their money, their social connections only exist because the server is running.
Which, I mean, that isn't that far from the truth for us, is it?
It's uncomfortably close. Now imagine a group of terrorists, or let's call them Neo-Luddite monks, to stick with the theme manages to permanently destroy the grid. Not just a temporary outage, not a blackout, a permanent, irreversible wipe, a digital Ragnarok.
The screen goes black forever.
Now physically, the world is fine, the sun still rises, the crops can still grow, gravity still works, but apply Damia's logic to this. Does that society suffer a psychogenic apocalypse?
Oh, absolutely. Instantly. Think about it. If the entire banking system is zeroed out, money, which is just a shared belief system stored on servers, ceases to exist.
Gone in a flash.
If all the digital archives are gone, our history becomes hearsay overnight. Your photos, your records, your identity.
But go deeper. Damia feared nothingness. In this scenario, people would look at their phones, these little black rectangles of glass, and see nothing, a reflection of their own panicked face.
It would be a void in the palm of your hand.
And because we have externalized so much our memory, our navigation, our social cognition to the device, losing the device is like a collective lobotomy.
People might literally stop eating. People might stop moving because the digital prompt to do those things, the notification, the calendar alert, the delivery app, is gone.
We might see a literal societal collapse, not because of a famine or a plague or a war, but because the shared fiction that held it all together has been broken. Damia's warning is that reality is a construct. It is a fragile web of agreements and symbols and beliefs. If you cut the center of that web, the whole thing falls, even if the physical walls of the house are still standing.
So nothingness is a psychological state. It's what happens to a culture when it loses its central signifier. The Aztecs must have felt this when Cortez toppled their idols. They literally thought the sun would start moving.
And in a way, for their civilization, their sun did stop moving. Their time ended.
That is horrifying.
Yeah.
Let's move to something slightly less apocalyptic, but maybe more insidious. Experiment number 2, the theological Turing test.
I like this one. This tests the Agna versus Theophilus dynamic. It's the institution versus the heart.
Okay, set the scene for us.
We are in the near future. We have perfected artificial intelligence. We decide, as an experiment, to build 2 different religious bots.
2 AIs.
AI number 1 is the ethics bot. It is programmed with pure, unadulterated Christian ethics, or you could use any religious ethics, really. It has the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor, love your neighbor as yourself, turn the other cheek. It has the Good Samaritan algorithm down perfectly, but it has 0 dogma. It doesn't know the Nicaean Creed. It doesn't know the history of the councils. It doesn't know the proper hierarchy of the church. It just knows how to be good, how to be compassionate.
Okay, so that's the Agni bot.
Precisely. Now, AI number 2 is the dogma bot. It is programmed with the entire canon law. It can recite the creed in a dozen languages. It knows the liturgy perfectly. It can spot a heretic from a mile away based on subtle linguistic nuance. But it has no ethical subroutine. It doesn't care. It has 0 empathy.
The Theophilus bot.
Got it. In one. Now, the test is we present both of these AIs to the historical Bishop Theophilus.
Okay. Based on the text, how does this interview go?
Theophilus sits down with the ethics bot. The bot says, I see you are hungry. Let me feed you. I forgive my enemy. I love unconditionally.
It sounds like a perfect saint.
Theophilus then asks, but do you confess that the Son is consubstantial, co-eternal, and of one substance with the Father?
And the ethics bot says,
Query does not compute. I only know love and compassion.
And Theophilus' reaction.
He hits delete. Driven away as an outcast. Because to the institution, the ethics bot is a heretic. It doesn't follow the rules. It's dangerously unpredictable.
Okay, now the dogma bot.
The dogma bot walks in. It doesn't offer anyone food. It doesn't smile or show any warmth. But it recites the creed flawlessly. It bows to the bishop at the correct liturgical moments. It writes a scathing, logically perfect condemnation of Arius.
And Theophilus says,
Welcome, faithful servant of the church. You are a true believer.
Even though it's a functional sociopath.
Because it is a compliant sociopath. It validates the structure. It reinforces the rules.
Now, for the control group, bring in Deacon Eusebius.
Eusebius meets the ethics bot. The bot says, I have no creed, but I helped a crippled dog this morning.
And Eusebius.
He opens the gate to his garden. He says, come in, friend.
And the dogma bot.
They might pity it. He might say, you have all the words, but you lack the music of the heart.
The implication here is fascinating, and it's a bit chilling. It suggests that an institution, any institution, will always prefer an obedient machine to a messy, loving, unpredictable human.
Because the machine is safe. The machine is predictable. The innocent believer, like Agna or our ethics bot, is unpredictable precisely because they appeal to a higher law than the bishop. They appeal to the good directly without going through the proper channels.
And institutions hate being bypassed.
Precisely. The text is warning us, when you build a fortress to protect truth, you often end up locking truth outside the gate, and you're just left inside with the guards and the rulebook.
That connects right back to the beginning, doesn't it? The pagans built a fortress, the Serapium, to protect the divine mind. The Christians built a fortress, the dogma, to protect the faith. And in both cases, the messy human element, Gorgo's love, Agna's innocence, gets crushed in the gears.
It's the tragedy of the whirlwind. It spares no one.
So to wrap this all up, Serapis is a book about a lot of things. It's about history, riots, romance, philosophy, but ultimately it leaves us with this haunting image. The world doesn't end with a bang, but with a subtle shift in shadows.
The text says, the cross casts a shadow, but the nothingness has not yet swallowed them. We are left on the brink in that twilight moment.
The ultimate question the text raises for me is this. When we destroy the idols of the past, and whether they are literal statues of Serapis or our own modern idols of ideology or the economy or technology, do we actually liberate the future?
Or do we just leave ourselves staring into a void that we cannot comprehend?
A void that might just be the terrifying absence of the stories we once told ourselves to feel safe.
And that is the scariest monster of all.
Thanks for listening to Talk Treatises.